During the Thousand Year Blood War arc, two formidable Sternritter had an epic battle against each other. It had lasted from chapters 631 to 634. I'm of course talking about Bazz-B's amazing battle against Haschwalth. During their fight, we see a flashback of Bazz-B and Haschwalth's childhood, as well as their first meeting with Yhwach. And ever since having met Yhwach, the paths of these two childhood friends had diverged. Over the years, Bazz-B attempted several times to clash with Haschwalth, and eventually the two of them do end up battling after Yhwach betrays most of the Sternritter by using Ashvalan. Now, given the number of anime exclusive scenes that we've seen just within Cour 1 and Cour 2, I think that it's really important for us to discuss how battles like Bazz-B vs Haschwalth can be expanded upon within Cour 3. Now, as it stands, Bazz-B vs Haschwalth within the manga reveals a lot of vital Quincy lore to us. We find out why Haschwalth is a special Quincy, and we also get to see a more sadistic side of Yhwach, as he had murdered a number of Quincy who had refused to serve or join him. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all of the ways in which Bazz-B vs Haschwalth can be expanded upon within the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime. Now be sure to stick around until the very end of this video, as I'll be analysing the importance of Bazz-B's final words. So without further delay, here are my predictions on how Bazz-B vs Haschwalth can be expanded upon within Cour 3. Discover the Undead Collection and be amongst the very first to join us on our journey over at getsuga.com. In chapter 623 titled Against the Judgment, we see Bazz-B, Lil Toto and Giselle agree to help the Shinigami, who at the time were devising a method to enter the royal palace. The Sternritter had agreed to help the Shinigami, but in return they have to agree to take the Sternritter with them to battle against Yhwach. The surviving Quincy within the Serite had felt betrayed after Yhwach had treated them like fodder after he had just casted Ashvalan. During the flashback in chapter 631, Bazz-B and Haschwalth are revealed to be children, and their families appear not to be a part of Yhwach's Empire of Light. The Empire of Light is what Yhwach's army was referred to over 1,000 years ago, and with his army he had conquered the northern lands. Bazz-B and Haschwalth had first met as children within the forest, and the two had quickly become friends, with Bazz-B assuming that he is the stronger Quincy out of the two due to his proficiency with his ability to manipulate reishi. He even goes as far as to state that Haschwalth is nothing without him, due to the fact that Haschwalth is unable to even make a Quincy bow. 6 months after Haschwalth and Bazz-B had first met, Yhwach had arrived and burned down the castle that Bazz-B's family had lived within. It is at this point that a seed of hatred was planted within Bazz-B's heart. At this time, Haschwalth's supposedly abusive uncle had also died in this fire. This had resulted in the two of them growing closer than ever, as they now had nobody but themselves to rely on. They had survived after digging up some gold that they had found within the charred remains of Bazz-B's family castle. Both Bazz-B and Haschwalth had trained as hard as they could with the sole purpose of aiming to kill Yhwach. In order to achieve this goal, they had decided to join Yhwach's inner circle. Between the two of them, Bazz-B clearly had more hatred towards Yhwach, and it seems like Haschwalth was just tagging along and supporting Bazz-B because he really had nothing else to do. Bazz-B and Haschwalth's relationship was forever changed when Yhwach had returned and selected Haschwalth to join his army. Once Bazz-B had also joined the Sternritter, he had attempted to provoke his former friend to combat several times, but Haschwalth had always refused to duel him. This is until chapter 634, when we finally see the two of them battle. Despite being a fight that a lot of fans were hyped for, it ended up being very brief within the manga. It ends with Haschwalth walking away as the victor, as Bazz-B lays on the ground in critical condition. Overall, looking at this fight and the entire battle between Haschwalth versus Bazz-B, I think that it's evident that this is going to be expanded upon within the anime via some exclusive scenes. One of the things that Kubo definitely needs to reveal to us is how Yhwach went about building his Empire of Light. We may well get to see the devastation that Yhwach had inflicted upon hundreds or thousands of Quincy who would refuse to follow his orders. This includes how Yhwach had subjugated the northern lands. I also think that there might be some sequences revealing how the various Sternritter were chosen chosen by Yhwach. I'm also curious as to how Bazz-B had managed to become a Sternritter after his attempt on Yhwach's life. Now during the fight sequences, it is most likely that we will get to see Haschwalth's holy form, but considering the difference in skill and power between Haschwalth and Bazz-B, he may well not even need to showcase his holy form during this fight. But I am confident that we're going to get some more combat scenes between Bazz-B and Haschwalth that we didn't see within the manga. I also believe that Lil Toto and Giselle's confrontation with Yhwach will be happening at the same time as Bazz-B's confrontation with Haschwalth, so that too also has an opportunity to be expanded upon. We know that Bazz-B had come from somewhat of a noble Quincy family who had resided within a huge castle. His hatred for Yhwach was born after he had killed Bazz-B's family and burned down their castle. So I think that the anime definitely has an opportunity to show us how Bazz-B's family had rebelled against Yhwach, which had ultimately led to their untimely demise. I honestly want to see this civil war between the Quincy, where those who follow Yhwach had attempted to subjugate other Quincy's by forcing them to join his Empire of Light. Now in the flashbacks of Bazz-B and Haschwalth's childhood, Yhwach decides to choose Haschwalth to be his right-hand man. However, Haschwalth politely refuses, as he states that he barely has the ability to even conjure up a Quincy bow and arrow. He goes on to state that Bazz-B would probably be more suited for this role than him. However, Yhwach ignores Bazz-B's recommendation as he proclaims that Haschwalth does not yet understand the true nature of his power. He goes on to reveal that Haschwalth is the same as him. He is a Quincy who has the ability to share his power with others. Yhwach then states that he has searched long and hard for someone like Haschwalth because the last Quincy with the power to share with others was born 200 years ago, and this of course was Yhwach. Haschwalth is very different to other Quincy's. He cannot absorb spirit particles from his surroundings, with his powers largely being focused on sharing his strength with others. Yhwach grows stronger by having others develop the power that he had granted them, and once these individuals die, Yhwach reabsorbs this power and grows stronger as a result of it. Yhwach suggests that Bazz-B must have developed his powers exponentially after he had spent so much time with Haschwalth. This of course humiliates Bazz-B, as all of his efforts and his proficiency with his power weren't as a result of his own hard work, but rather because he was around Haschwalth. This point about Haschwalth being a special Quincy born once every 200 years can also be expanded upon within the anime. The flashback serves as a useful point in order to build upon the origins of Yhwach and how he is the progenitor of all Quincy. It would be interesting to see how he is the offspring of the Soul King and who Yhwach's mother is. I think there's also an opportunity to expand upon the Quincy lore, as I'd love to know if there were other Quincy born with similar powers to Haschwalth and Yhwach who ended up being killed by their families as they were considered to be disabled because they didn't have conventional Quincy powers and instead had the power to share with others. There is so much unexplored detail about the lore of the Quincy. Like, how did Soken Ishida know about all of this knowledge? How was he able to know that the still silver arrowhead can stop the powers of somebody who has casted a Shvalin? Is it possible that there were other Quincy who were able to activate this ability too? Via these exclusive scenes, we can also learn more details about the origins of Pernaida and Gerard, and how they had inherited body parts of the Soul King and at the same time had identified themselves as Quincy. The Soul King plays a massive part in the origins of the Quincy because via the Can't Be Your Own World light novels, we learned that the Soul King was capable of erasing hollows from existence similar to how the Quincy do, and that the Soul King also had the powers of the Almighty. The main difference is that when the Soul King had utilized the Almighty, he appeared to have 4 pupils within his eyes, while Yhwach seems to have 3. Now I know while this is a video about Bazz-B vs Haschwalth and how it can be expanded upon, it's just that their battle includes a pivotal Quincy flashback, which I think that the anime staff can really build upon. This is why I've talked so much about Quincy lore within this video. I do have another video on the channel where I discuss and theorize more about the Quincy Civil War and the rivaling factions within the Quincy, so definitely go and check out that video if you want to learn more about the Quincy. During Haschwalth's battle against Bazz-B, Bazz-B was able to showcase a majority of his moveset, having used all of the burner fingers that he is able to utilize. On the other hand, Haschwalth was very limited in the moveset that he had displayed, so it would be interesting to see Haschwalth fight back and counter with more of his special abilities, so I think that there is a lot of scope for expansion when it comes to the hand-to-hand combat sequences here. So many people are waiting for the battle between Bazz-B vs Haschwalth to be animated and for it to be done justice so that it is improved upon in comparison to the manga version. With how the fight stands within the manga, it has a lot of emotional weight, and there is potential for them to expand expand upon this and to emphasize a lot of the emotional points within the anime. I love to see maybe Haschwalth reacting to the death of Bazz-B, because in the manga he kind of just walks away as Bazz-B is left to bleed out. Bazz-B's final words are really important, as within the manga he states that he thought that losing to Haschwalth would hurt more than this. This highlights that Bazz-B in the end had come to accept Haschwalth's position, and as emotional as it is, in his dying moments he accepts that the two of them are still friends in some way, and more importantly he accepts death at the hands of his friend. While this was vague and ambiguous within the manga, it would be nice to have a bit more expansion upon Bazz-B's final words, just to really bring home the emotional impact for the finale of this fight. Maybe Bazz-B is just happy that his friend was the one to have stopped him and he didn't end up losing his life to someone like Yhwach. With cour 3 and 4 we are reaching the final few volumes of the Bleach manga, and this is where the 1000-Year Blood War arc had started to struggle with its direction and with the pacing. It was evident that Kubo definitely wanted to give some fight scenes more screen time, but a lot of the action was off-screened, and unfortunately we were rushing from one plot point to another without allowing for the story beats to properly develop into anything really meaningful. There is still a lot to like about the 1000-Year Blood War arc, but I'm not in denial. I know that the anime can do a lot to improve upon how it is within the manga. There's a lot of cool ideas that Kubo has clearly left on the table, which I do want to see in cour 3 and 4, so I'm super excited to see how the anime is going to be adapting the final few volumes of the Bleach manga. Let me know all of your thoughts on how Bazz-B vs Haschwalth can be expanded upon. What new details about the past of the Quincy do you want to be shown within the anime? Do you think that Bazz-B vs Haschwalth is going to be even more emotional in the anime than it was within the manga? I'd love to know all of your thoughts, so definitely continue the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.